we're talking heavy stuff today. We need a little levity with our gravity and a little joy with our kamaha. That's who we are. So we need to be here in this moment. Walava mako ika pohaku. Of course. Okay, we got this.
I was gonna go with another song, and I thought, no, we're gonna just keep it, So kind of weird, but it's okay.
Can we close with Sunshine in the Music just to lift them up again? Or one of the ones that
we can do that. We can do that.
A little jiggle, maybe a little girly, just to make them laugh. Okay. At the end, we got I would love a medley. No, I'm kidding.
Live.
For you, Aukahi, whatever, sister.
I love such an invitation to cause trouble. How wonderful. Look at these wonderful stuff. Hey, hi, Ryan. I see you. Aloha.
Aloha, Venus. Hey, Marissa, see you. Auntie Tua, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Gil.
But in doing so, we cannot, under any circumstance, forget our culture, our language, and our history. Hawaii no ko kako kuleata. Aloha.
Yeah, are we good to go, Gail? Are we Makoko?
Yeah, I think people still coming in, but we can.
Oh, okay. We can do another mele if we need.
Now we go talk story. No worry, we go talk story. It's okay.
Okay.
But occasionally we say all the juicy stuff before we start the formal presentation. If you guys are okay, can we skip the whole like Aukahi is the this of the that of the that of the that? Can we just not do that today?
We go at whatever you like, sister.
Okay, because they can read. It was in the email. It's okay. They if they don't know my deal, they can find out more if they need to.
They can Google you. That's true.
Yeah, I mean, don't do that. There's a couple of photos that are a little, No, I'm kidding. But we don't need to do that today, especially when I look and see these faces of the folks that are here on the call. I'm among friends, among fellow warriors in the good work, who sit with people and carry kamaha and help people walk to their, reach for healing all the time. So we don't need to do my deal. I almost would rather I'll share your deal, because I feel like a good amount of healing comes from just sitting and holding this together for a little while. So let's not, I'm also going to warn you now, which you can probably tell is I'm a super big fan of leaving a script as I feel is appropriate for the context. Because when I look at these faces, especially those of you whose names I know, whose faces I see, I don't know how much I need to tell you what trauma looks like, but I'll do it because I said I would. But I'm probably going to try to get to the part where we talk about healing and where we talk about resilience and what that word is when I say it. Which I use that word only when I also get to talk about systemic bias and historical and cultural trauma, because if we don't recognize what people are having to be resilient about, it's sort of a funny way to talk about that word. But healing, I think we all know. I believe I'm in the company of many healers, and so I'm excited for your Ike. I'm hopeful that you will not stay on mute, that you will at least light up the chat, if not the unmute button. But I'm a really big fan of this being a space where you get what you need out of this time. And that I'm aware that when we talk about trauma, that we can sometimes, we can invite that feeling in for people at times, even just by discussing and describing it in a certain way. And so please know that I'm hoping that you can feel that I'm someone who stands with you if that's where you are in this moment, not someone who's looking at you and pointing at you and saying, here's visual aid number 2. I just want you to know that if that is something that you want to be prepared for, we're going to start with a visualization, and I invite you to access it or the visualization you create for yourself as we do it. anytime that you need to during this. If it gets to be a bit much, besides muting me, you can just take yourself to that space you go to. But for those of you who weren't really sure what I was going to talk about today, if you feel like today would be the day where your soft and squishy is exposed, then you might feel a little hurt by talking about these. Now's the time to put up your pale. And now's the time to put the barrier up, to be ready, so that not all of that stuff gets inside here. It's okay if it comes to here and you can consider it, but I don't want it inside here, inside of who you are. So if you need to kind of put that protection up from yourself, get a little distance from me, you know, push my screen back a little bit or anything like that, please feel free. It's important that you all have a good day today. So the reason you're here is not because you want me to tell you about how dark and spooky some of the lived experiences of our keiki are. It's because we're all trying to connect and feel supported and feel like we have the abundance of strategies, gifts, love, and support that comes when you approach it with a cultural perspective. There is a wealth of, there's more tools, there's more to do, there's more to lean into when we come at it this way. And so you don't have to feel like you're ill-equipped and that all you have to give is your very soul. We can armor you with a few more things to help you feel like you can care about them without carrying it yourself, so that you can try again tomorrow. Because I need all of you to be doing this for many, many years to come. And I can't have you feeling like the weight of this is so heavy that you don't want to carry it anymore. So we're going to all learn together how to pale ourselves and be ready and prepared for what comes, how to ho'oku'u, how to let things go when we need to as part of this. And we're going to walk together today for a little while, if that's cool with you. Yeah, is that okay? Okay, so should we do the like, ladies and gentlemen, we are starting like that? Do we start? Yeah, is that okay?
Yeah, if we can. Yeah, just a few minutes, Gail. I'm going to turn it over to Gail.
Yeah. Do you think the like,
in. Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, compassionate ko'olau poko, like that? Do that, please.
We'll just say really quickly that, yeah, Bella and I are part of Compassionate Ko'olau Poko, where it's a community initiative that helps our community build well-being. We do that through collaboration with a lot of community partners. And that's all we're going to say today, is that we're just super grateful for all of you to spend your time with us, and extremely grateful to have Aukahi here to share with us today. Mahalo. It's your turn, Aukahi.
Mahalo nui. I don't know if you folks know, but this example, compassionate ko'olau poko, is actually a wonderful example of one of the kinds of healing I'm going to be talking about a little bit today, community-based healing. And so just so you guys kind of know, just the formation and the gathering of you here is one of the things that we're doing to heal and uplift community, to just gather together in the little Brady Bunch rectangles is fine. Noho wau ma ko'olau poko I ke ia maula. I am married to a kupa kane'ohe, and so I now reside there as well. But I am he pupu o Ewa ke ia. I was born and raised in Manana, Ewa Oahu, and the very edge of Ewa, out there by what is now called tracks, is my kai. That's the kai that I have always been in, and it's where I go when I need to ho'oku'u. It's where I need to be. It's, I think, the most, chemical composition probably matches my koko the most. You know what I'm saying? That's my kai. So I run most of Ewa all the way to the very end over there. Yeah. Anyway, okay. So Pili Aukahi is about the end of Ewa. That's where that is the kai of my life. Anyway, so that's me. I'm a psychologist by training, for those of you who want to know what lens I was Western trained in. And I'm Olapa in Halau ke A'ali I Makani. That's my cultural practice, is hula and oli, and the cultural practice sequelae that come when you're someone whose kumu says you gather and make everything you wear. So I'm all those things. I'm terrible at growing plants, but I know really good how to ask permission when they grow in the wild. If they want to come with me, go to a thing. They know how to tell me they want to come. So I know that part. I just, my thumb is not green. I did not inherit that practice, but I pull a mean weed when I visit someone else's aina. So I feel like that's how I serve. Anyway, okay. So that's who I am. I'm mother of one, Kane, Keiki Kane. He's still a Keiki Kane, although he looks and sounds like a Kane. And I'm just really, really grateful to be here with you folks today. So shall we boogie? I'm sorry, can you tell I'm riffing a little because I know what we're about to dive into. And so I'm like, okay, guys, for real, we're gonna be okay. It's gonna be cool. I am me, you are you. If you feel so inclined to get warmed up on this whole chat box situation, or you would like to unmute for a moment, I'm gonna have a 10-second open mic for you to tell me where you are sitting right now, or what aina you hail from. So who is represented today? Throw it in the chat or call it out on the mic. Ready? Who's here?
San Diego.
Kauai.
Waianae.
Manoa.
Honoka'a.
Woo!
Lailoa.
Wow.
Hawaii.
Holy smokes, you guys. We might have the whole Aina and a couple from the Aina on today.
Halolo ame haleiwa.
Mahalo. Nani. Any last stragglers? They watched everybody else jump in the water and I didn't make you talk too much, so it's safe. Anybody else want to go?
San Diego, California.
Mahalo. Okay. Hey, Hilo's in the house. Okay. When you get all the way from Keaukaha to Hilo and a little bit San Diego, that's a pretty good day, huh? Okay. And I know we got the North Shore in the house, even though they're feeling a little shy right now to own their Red Raider for life situation, but that's cool. I see you. Mahalo. Okay. Oh, yeah. Mahalo, Konahema. Mahalo. Okay. Thank you all so much for being here. It feels like we've already engaged a pale just by saying that out loud, by naming all of the corners of our pai aina. We begin with that process where we cover ourselves and we protect ourselves by naming where we're from. It's a kind of strength you can gather. So already we're just beginning to do those things that you want to do when you want to create and hold a safe space. So in naming all of the places that you all come from, that strengthens you and represents you in this space, that you are welcome. And to name the spaces, my o ane'i, right from way over there to right over here with me, what we do is we create that pale, the barrier around ourselves. And so let us begin, because now it feels like we can. Okay, I'm gonna do slides. I promise I will try to turn them off whenever I remember, okay? Okay. Oh, hi there, A'ali'i. That's my friend. I'm an Ali Kumakani. That's the name of my halau. It's the kino lau that I resonate with the most as a human. It's who I am. So turns out I am bringing myself, my whole self to you today. Okay, let's boogie. So what we're going to do today, we're going to start with a visualization. We're going to talk about the forms of trauma. And as I said, we're probably not going to linger too long there, although there's lots we can talk about there. But we're going to talk about using some examples of real life humans that have been described for you to talk about well-being strategies. What do we do to make safe spaces? What do we do to promote people to engage in practices that can be healing for them from a Hawaiian perspective and beyond just, well, looks like you're in for lifelong therapy, kid. No, they might be, but there might be all these other strengths that they might lean into from this perspective. So that's where we're going to begin today. And off to the left, if you're wondering what that burgundy and green stuff is, that is a'ali'i. That's the hua, the capsules of the a'ali'i plant strung on a string, kui, lei style. So anyway, that's what's down there. That's to hold us down while we do this. Because they say, he a'ali'i ku makani a'ohe makani nanae kula'i. And that means, no, I am the wind-bearing a'ali'i. No wind can blow me over. So it is said that if you are caught in a forest, in a storm, what you should do if you want to survive is hang on to an a'ali'i bush because it won't blow over. And so I'm asking and inviting that a'ali'i to hold all of us today as we go through this so that we don't get blown over. And so that we can, as a group, feel kupa'a ikamakani, that we stand strong in the wind that blows around us all the time. Sometimes the wind we cause from ourselves, but most of the time it's stuff that's cooking out there in the world. And let that we be by the a'ali'i at all times. We hold on to it, we become it, all of those things. So we're going to do that starting right now. So what we're going to do is we're going to go on a little huaka'i. So as I shared with you earlier, I'm from a halau where you don't put it on your body unless you made it. And so we're going to start up here in a visualization. If you want to, you can close your eyes. You can leave them wide open. You can change the plant. You can do anything you want to do, but I'm going to take you on a little Aukahi with me now. Okay? So just go ahead and take some deep breaths. Find your body. We're here in virtual space together, but I want you to begin slowly, just breathing in and out. Grabbing that piece of yourself you left in some other meeting today, bringing that one back in. Grabbing one you forgot in the car earlier today, pull that one in. Collecting for yourself all of the pieces of who you are that you've left scattered throughout the day today. Pull them all back, invite them back in, so that in this moment, sitting here, you can feel yourself whole again. Just allow yourself to catch a breath. Feel yourself here. Okay. And now, I want you to picture yourself heading up on a hike. You're heading up to a mountain. Not one of those mountains that you need picks and ropes for, but a good sturdy pu'u that you know very well. The path is covered because it's been a while since you've been here, but you know the way. You weave your way first through the invasive species. You giggle with excitement when you walk and you find yourself in the middle of a lawa'e patch that has no right to be there. You continue to wind and follow along the track that you can feel with your feet, vaguely see with your eyes. You've got plants brushing up against your legs as you continue to walk around the winding path. And there in front of you, on a windy bluff, where the plant is leaning into the wind and blowing, not away from it like it's bent away, but leaning in. There you see them in clusters, deep and red and gorgeous like apples, these clusters of a'ali'i hanging out on the bushes there. And then you look a little further and you see its friend, who's chartreuse, and another that is just pink and green and red all together. And you know you've arrived. And so you begin the process. You oli and ask permission. And in the right moment, the plants seem to agree it's okay that you're there. And you begin to gather. And as you gather, you take some from this bush and a little from that bush. Just enough so that when you stand back, the tree looks like nothing happened to it. It barely looks like you were even there. Slowly, you begin to gather the capsules. The beautiful clusters, you collect them, one and then the other. And today you might feel like wandering a little further away from the group. So you go out and find your own spot a little further out. Because you know, to gather as you walk back is a good practice for you. So you find the friendly little bush and you listen to the wind as you gather the a'ali'i. And when you've gathered enough for your purpose, say your mahalo, you head down the mountain, knowing that you've got something to bring with you and you can feel the life teeming in the bag. And you arrive at home and begins the process. You spread out the materials you've gathered, that beautiful a'ali'i and any other little mea kanu friends you also gathered. You soak your raffia because that's what you're using today. Or maybe you're going to use la'i and braid. You gather everything in front of you and gently, ever so slowly, you begin to pick the capsules. You clean them. Pluck one leaf here and maybe a few there until the a'ali'i look ready. And you slowly, you keep doing that over and over, cleaning the plants, making a pile until it grows and grows. And you know you've cleaned it all. And then you begin. You braid, you tie a knot to start, and you lay that first plant there in your hand, ready to start the lay. It will be the foundation of everything you make. Slowly, you begin to wind. You wind the raffia around the base of the plant and hold it pa'a with your hands. You can feel in the back of your neck the tension. And you give it a little stretch and reposture yourself, remembering to pull in that piko so that your back can handle, because we're going to gather another plant, Put that piece where it belongs and wrap again. Over and over. We gather the plant, put it right where it belongs and wrap it until it feels held and firm. And remember the message of our kupuna that taught us to make lei, who said, you don't need to wind a lot. You wind just as often as you need to. You don't pull it too tight, because if your hands feel tense the whole time, it's too tight. The plants will break. We're going to wrap and hold it firm, just in place, just right, like a hug. And we continue to wind and wind the raffia down and around. And every so often, we grab the spray bottle that we prepared ahead of time, and we give that lei a nice cool misting so that the whole plant is dewy again. And a little bit, we can feel it on our skin ourselves. Our fingers feel damp, maybe even a little pruny as we continue to wind and grow this beautiful lei. It begins to get long, and we get to that length where we can measure it on our head. We can feel the cool plants touching our forehead. And there we are, holding the plant to us, checking, is it long enough? Does it fit me right? How's it going? Is it even? Or is this better a lei for a pa'u princess around a horse's neck? We look at our lei and we see all the work that we've put in, every small piece part of the greater whole. And we know that we've finished. And it's time to bind and tie the end and know that we've made something beautiful. Okay. So those of you who spin a visualization or help people to ground here and there, anybody want to share what you caught me doing? For those of you who like to talk technician, anybody see the moves? Well, for those of you who like to have notes, did anybody come off mute? I couldn't tell. No? Okay. For those of you who like to keep notes, we're going to wrap folks in sensory, comfortable feelings, right? We're going to do things that are repetitive, that ground us the way that being on Aina grounds us. We're going to teach them that they can take themselves on a journey that they control, right? We're going to talk about the characteristics of a plant that can soothe, right? So we're going to talk about the difference between holding too tight and holding too loose. So we're going to talk about feeling held like a hug, but not stifled, right? We're going to use the practice. And the thing is, anybody on here want to admit you're a lei maker? You don't have to be lay master, but lay maker. Anybody attempted before? Mahalo. If you do or are, then this becomes an even more helpful visualization. For those of you who've never made lei, you're like, oh, okay, I'm with you. I like that. You got that hypnosis voice going on, cool. But if you've made lei, it becomes something you can picture. You know that feeling when your finger's been holding it too long, when you go, oh, I'm stiff. Let me check my muscles. All of those pieces are things that can help make a visualization more helpful for people, more grounding for them. And many folks that I've worked with, especially kiddos, they don't know what grounds them. But if you can activate a script they're familiar with that they like, and couple it with just a little bit of imagination. Maybe you talk about the warm sun on their face when they're walking, or if they're like, I hate being hot, then we talk about a cool breeze comes by. You know, we're going to build for them a story. And the more this is your practice that you're familiar with, the more meditative it can be, because you can kind of pick the story up and take it on your own. And you go, oh no, in my hands, I only do lawa'e. I'm not a ali'i person, I'm a lawa'e person. Or, oh, I like to kui. I got plumeria going on in my yard. That's what I do. And then you just let the narrative go for itself. But can you see where this might be something that if you were feeling so inclined today, anytime you need to get carried away, head on up, go gather some more a'ali'i. You don't have to make a full lei today, but you can make a little cluster for your hair, a little koko for around your bun. But use this anytime that you need, that if stuff gets a little heavy, we just keep it rolling. Head back to lei making, okay? One foot in front of the other is very much like one plant and winding, one plant and winding, okay? Okay, mai ka'i. All right. With that in mind, as an invitation to use as a pale as you'd like, or as a way to ho'oku'u a little bit if things get a little much. Let's boogie. So we're going to talk about two kiddos today, a teen and a late elementary kiddo. And so what I was going to do is I was going to write it all up there. And I thought, no, that's not the part of your brain I want to activate today. So I'm going to read to you first about Kalehua. And then I'm going to read to you about Keao. And then we're going to have the conversation about all the other parts of what we're going to talk about. But first, I just want to give you these kiddos to hold with you as you come along in the story. Okay? All right, let's do this. Oh, it would be good if I had it open. Okay. Here we go. Here's Kalehua. She is a 15-year-old native Hawaiian girl who loves to throw her hair up in a bun in the middle of a conversation. It's kind of like a conversational tool for her for emphasis when she's finally paying attention and getting serious. She was referred for evaluation by her teacher, who was concerned about her maybe having depression because something's changed. She's always been a quiet girl, was above average student, always prepared for class at the start of the year, even kind of seemed to enjoy things. Although she never volunteered answers during class discussions or asked questions, she was clearly paying attention. Recently, in addition to increased absences from school, Kalehua has started missing homework assignments, falling asleep in class, even first thing in the morning. Her typically calm and quiet demeanor in class has changed into vacant stares or annoyed looks of disdain. She has recently been observed hanging out with the rougher group of girls recently, and was sent to the office last week for bullying another girl in her class, along with some other girls. You check in with campus security and find out that she's been observed talking with an older boy who graduated the year before and was known as a fighter and suspected drug user. She has lost a significant amount of weight over the last 2 months. You speak with her mother, because you're that kind, and find out that her father was killed recently, and Kalehua was the one who discovered him. Because of this loss, Kalehua's mother took on a second job and they had to move in with Kalehua's grandmother. Kalehua is often left while her mother is working to care for her 4 younger siblings and grandmother, who has significant health problems. Okay, hold on to Kalehua. And now we're going to talk about Keao. Keao is a 10-year-old native Hawaiian boy that one of the teachers at your school has concerns about. He has been at your school since the 2nd grade when he transferred over from a Hawaiian language immersion school. He is in special education for problems with reading and has difficulty even in his regular ed classes, especially math. A recent round of psychological testing identified him as cognitively impaired, although reports from all of his teachers suggest that his functioning, comprehension, and verbal skills are way above the impaired range. He is disruptive in all but one of his classes, PE, where his baseball coach is the teacher. He was caught cheating on a math test recently and is often distracting to other children because he talks to them so often during class. The PE teacher is often surprised to hear that Keao is a problem student for other teachers, given how eager and compliant he is during class and how often he acts as a leader among his peers. He also shared with you that he knows Keao's parents well because they are always at Keao's baseball games and even volunteer to help out at practice. In addition to cheating and distracting classmates, Keao often blurts out answers loudly during group discussions rather than waiting his turn and becomes visibly hurt when he is corrected or ignored by his teacher. When he is told that he has a wrong answer, he withdraws from the group and puts his head down. The teacher report suggests that it can take up to 2 hours for Keao to recover and re-engage in class activities. Keao is frequently absent from school and is falling behind in part due to his absences. He was recently referred to the counselor after writing "I like die" on his desk when he was held in at recess to finish work one day. Although the counselor called Keao's parents, they did not answer and did not return the phone call. Keao was absent for the rest of the week following that incident. Keao has an older sister who goes to your school. She appears to have a close relationship with Keao and is often seen scolding him on the playground during recess for not being a good sport. Okay, you got them? I promise I'll put that stuff up if you need to see it, but I feel like you know these kids. That's why I'm like, you know them. Yeah, okay. So let's start with Kalehua. this is the, I don't like this slide. Okay, but that's the summary. What are the things going on with Kalehua if we were thinking about her in a systems kind of way? If we started with individual and physical stuff going on, we see what kinds of things? Throw it in the chat. What do you see about Kalehua? If you don't want to start with individual, it's okay. Start with anywhere. What do you remember about her? What did you see? She's lost weight recently. What else? She's got grief. A recent loss of parent that she found him. So more than just sad. What else did you hear? Possible drug use or exposure. We see a change in behavior. That's usually our first clue, isn't it? Something's different than before. Withdrawal, right? We see her spending time with the older boy. Yeah, she's got to do some caregiving. She's not just a kid anymore. She's got to take care of her youngers and a kupuna to care for who has poor health. So that kuleana piece is pretty big for her. What else do we see? Yeah, the weight loss. She's been a bit of a bully lately, which is not her general style, right? So she's running more with the dark and spooky side of things. Yes, do you see that? Where she's withdrawn and a little more sullen, a little more eye-rolly. Yeah, academics are going down. Yep. Now she's experienced the change in SES. Thank you, Marissa. Right. So we know that her mama had to get a second job and they couldn't afford housing on their own anymore. And that was a big change for her. Right. Maybe she had her own bedroom or her own room before. And now she's caregiving. They've moved into somebody else's house. That doesn't usually mean more space and more independence. That usually means we're making it work. Right. And then just everything about the way she presented herself. All of it has changed. Okay, so that in PowerPoint language, the weight of the world is on her shoulders. She's got a trauma and a caregiver stress thing going on. School, where we usually think of school as a place where productivity is the goal, right? Are you getting your assignments done? She's not necessarily doing that, but the values there are different than at home, right? The goals are individual. How is she performing as an individual, not sort of how was her whole family system affected? We see her having peer problems. And then those economic and housing impacts that we see as the system things. Okay, so that's our Kalehua. Now, what about Keao? Same questions. This little boy, he's in 2nd grade. So we're talking about a little peanut of a guy. What's he already got going on for him? What are some things you detected? What are some guesses you have? Maybe we're talking about ADHD. We've got attentional concerns. Maybe he's jibber jabbering in class. He tends to respond more to the physical classes, maybe distractibility. Yeah, he loves PE. Something about that generally tickles my mind when I hear that, right? He likes the physical activity. His parents support the physical activity, right? They show up at baseball. So are these disengaged, don't love their children parent? No. What part are they not participating in? They're not pro-school. Now, why might that be? That they show up and do extra time at baseball, but they're not showing up at Kula, at school. What's cooking there? Anybody have some ideas about that? If we're talking about cultural or historical or intergenerational trauma, why might a parent have a different, maybe their own school experiences were junk, right? Maybe they've had bad experiences there. Maybe they've been scolded in school. What were you going to say, Andrea? Please.
Yeah, exactly. 9 times out of 10, after teaching over 28, almost 32 years, I have found out the same patterns and especially in middle school, I taught over 10 years in middle school, and that's the same pattern. It's the experience that the parent had while they were at that particular discipline, like if it was math or if it was science or if it was 6th grade or whatever. And it's every kind of experience that they had, and they just don't want it rerun. If it was a bad one or a negative one, rerun in their children's life, and they'll do anything and everything to make it not happen. For example, I taught PE a lot, and a lot of the people just wouldn't trust the children. They would come in, the parents would tell me, well, I hated PE, I hated my PE teacher, I hated to dress up. And so there you could see that they weren't trying, the students just wouldn't try in PE. So it's that example.
Mahalo.
Yeah.
Yeah, we could say, well, there's been 100 years of public DOE education that has not done really well by Hawaiian students, by Hawaiian people, by when we look at there's lots of data about lack of educational attainment and attrition before high school graduation for Hawaiian kids. And so when you think about what those parents might have gone through in their own experience of school, it would be hard to imagine that that doesn't impact their view of getting a call from the principal, yeah, or a call home from teacher. Those of you that are mental health providers, imagine how hard it is to engage that conversation where your focus is on the child in front of you and you're describing their specific behaviors and what you're noticing for them and their challenges. And maybe you're not pathologizing them, but maybe because you're just unpacking the conversation, just your general DOE badge makes you more suspect, makes them assume that you're coming at it from the same place of something's wrong with the child, some things like that, you know? Yeah, Jennifer, go ahead. What were you gonna say?
If you look at the baseball, he has a relationship of trust with the baseball coach. He knows him as somebody who specifically gives him feedback that immediately he gets benefits from it. He can see the results of what he's doing, and he has more confidence in that. Well, all other aspects, like why the parents have enough problem, they don't need to come to school and hear about all the things that their sons is doing wrong. Like, who wants to hear that? And then you have him, he going in, and every time he's talking to his friend, they're gonna tell him to be quiet. You stop shaking your legs, stop clicking the pen, whatever it is that he's doing that's irritating the heck everybody, you know, like, and in him, he's like, what's the matter if I'm doing that? You know, at least I'm not whacking you, you're clicking the pen. That's a good way of me keep my hand busy, you know, like.
Sure, yeah, you're not punching anybody, right?
Yeah,
so
exactly. And you know, so what if I'm standing up, I'm doing my work, you know, like.
Right, yeah.
What, you know, is looking at, most of the time they look at in the academic sense is being very critical. You're not measuring up, you're not doing this, you're not doing that. And I don't even think that the cognitive evaluation is correct. I think that he fooled the person and on purposely did not. He had zero relationship with the cold test coming in. And so he didn't perform. And that's why the cognitive is not, because otherwise it would be showing in every aspect of his life, not just at the cognitive time.
I appreciate you. So one of the really important tools you're talking about is pilina building. So if this was your student and you cared enough, you talked to a coach, you talked to the parents, you tried, so you actually care about them, then it might suggest pilina building slowly over time is going to be a vital part of your treatment plan, as it were. And then I couldn't help but throw in there the cognitive testing. I find them to be very valuable predictors of school performance because they are. Well, this little kid was in immersion till last year. So what language did he learn in? Oh, right. Olelo Hawaii. Guess what language none of the assessments are in? Olelo Hawaii. So he's being tested in the language that tells him, yeah, he's going to struggle in class because it's in English. So until he catches up, he's going to look like he's impaired. And using that data, what you can say is, oh my gosh, one more testing experience where he had to not know the answers, where he knew he didn't know what that was. And he had to feel that for what, 2 to 4 hours? That's a tough situation to put a kiddo in, right? Now, it doesn't mean we're not doing it because maybe they use nonverbal tests, maybe. And that would be useful to know too, but still just to know what, when you make a transition from Hawaiian language immersion into Western English ed, right? English immersion, that's a significant leap for a child to make. When you think about what are the values that are inherently wrapped into Hawaiian focus education, right? Pilina building, doing protocol in PICO. How do we behave? What are the expectations about collective versus individual work? It might vary. There might be different expectations in different schools. And so, you know, it's okay that we say this assessment, this snapshot is describing where this kiddo is at this moment, but it's describing the whole system, not just the child itself, right? It's not just this is an indicator of the child's aptitude. This is, how's this kid doing in school at this very moment? And if we can look at it that way, suddenly we don't have to vilify the very helpful school psychologist who's doing the testing And we don't have to vilify the child either, right? We can go, oh, snapshot of current environment, system just changed, transition from this system to that system, worthwhile, right? It's worthwhile to make a transition, to plan how to help this child transition. And maybe a good place to start is to ask the parent why they decided to switch schools. That might be your opening, maybe. Nadia, what were you going to say? I see your hand there.
I was just going to say that I actually have family friends whose children are going through that thing right now, that very thing where they grew up in Hawaiian immersion and their first language is, Hawaiian language, and they moved to the mainland recently and they're doing all these different standardized tests and they're struggling in them, not because they're not intelligent or, good students, but because it's all English, and so it was just so interesting because it's like I know people in my life that are going through that same thing right now. And yeah.
Give them 2 years and they'll kill it. Don't worry. But in the meantime, it helps if they're parents and if they have a frame that explains why.
Yeah.
Right. So that they're not sitting there thinking they're supposed to know these answers already. So I don't know if you can tell, but I like just dropping little hints about ways you can do stuff, strategies, just while we're talking, instead of being like, here is the bullet list of culturally appropriate treatment strategies. That's boring to me. So yeah, if we're describing a whole system, it's a little bit easier. Okay, so we've got Kalehua, who we remember lost her daddy, is the caregiver of life, and it's made her kaumaha show on the outside. She's heavy. And we've got Lil Keao, who's got a lot of spunk. He really, really is crushed by failure or his perception of shame at getting wrong answers. He shines bright as a leader in opportunities in specific spaces where his parents are there, where there's Pilina, and he's in a new environment where he doesn't know the moves yet. That's what we've got, okay? So I want you to remember those two kiddos as we're talking about all this stuff, okay? Just because I think we can invite them into the discussion. So what is trauma? We're going to start with personal trauma because this is where that term became a thing. So the one requirement for trauma is that something really, really bad happened and the person either experienced it or witnessed it. And also, by the way, could have perpetrated it. And it was a life-threatening, you are in danger, terrifying situation. So something about it made the person feel afraid for their life or they witnessed something horrifying happening to someone else where lives were in danger. Things that are very typical that happen to people afterward are things like what's called re-experiencing. What does that mean? It means things keep coming up again from it. You feel like you're reliving the movie script. Maybe you're having dreams about it, but you're just over and over, you can't stop thinking about it. Maybe it makes you see the person wanting to avoid the spot where it happened, avoid the reminders, not want to go in a hospital because it smells like that. Whatever it is, they want to avoid any of the sensory cues that take them back to that place. The nerd word is physiological hyperarousal, but what does that mean? They're jumpy and skittish. Their nervous system is all primed and ready to flee. So fight, flight, or freeze is now their new way of moving. You see muscle tension, you see them you drop a book, they jump out of their skin, right? They're kind of constantly scanning, looking for danger all of a sudden. And then we see their mind going just more toward that worrying and fretting and negative beliefs about the future. All of that stuff can happen right after a trauma event happens. Or conversely, shock, no reaction, flat, nothing's going on. I seem like I wasn't even there. Maybe I even have memory loss about the event. I can't remember the details. I don't remember what I was doing right before. It's all kind of a blank. You can also see people who get really emotionally reactive, like very angry, short-tempered. Or you see stuff like that you sort of expect, which is like shaky, scared, and sad. Those we sort of expect. It's the shock and the anger that most people go like, hey, what's all this? All of that stuff is very, very human normal for right after a traumatic incident. That's why the word trauma is there, because it's something very, very bad that happened. Right after that, it's totally normal. And what we expect for most human beings in just kind of the typical pattern is that we see it gradually getting better, less and less over time. Everybody has those reactions in the beginning to some extent, and it gets less gradually over time. What we think about when we kind of start paying attention is, if you notice, instead of it gradually getting worse and getting better and better, instead, it either stays exactly the same, like they live like it just happened yesterday, or it gets worse over time. The number of nightmares they have is more, the dreams about it, they start, if before they just avoided that one bus stop and now they won't get on any bus, the avoiding gets bigger, it starts to get in the way of living. So now I can't socialize with new people because they might die, like that. Like it starts to change how you interact with the world. You as a person, you might experience that as feeling like you don't want to ever get really close to other people, or the bad thing that happened is between you and everybody else. That's when we start talking about post-traumatic stress, kind of that sort of range where we start talking about when things get more heavy. Yes, are these familiar concepts for you guys? Is that a way to explain it? Sort of everybody has a trauma reaction because bad stuff happens. It's when it doesn't just sort of gradually get better, however slowly over time, that we start to go, okay, they might need more help to heal this. Cool? Okay. Then from here, we go, okay, if that's personal trauma, that makes sense to me. That's like someone was in a war-torn country and they escaped and they had to migrate somewhere else and they survived. They have nightmares about it. That makes sense to me. But what is cultural and historical trauma? So really, one way to think about what that is that it is the same thing, but on a larger scale and over a longer period of time. What do I mean? It's often something that can be experienced by a whole group of people. So let's say, for example, that there was a time when you lived on a land that your ancestors lived on. Let's pretend that's true, right? You were from a society where Ohana inherited lands and were the stewards and managers of that land, and you had within it all the resources you need to maintain it, including access to water and everything else. And suddenly, very abruptly, one day, all of it changes and you no longer own that land. Someone else comes and tells you you have to move off it and you can't go there anymore, even though that's where your ohana is buried. That's everything that you've ever known. Every story about your family is there. Now you have to leave and you're evicted from it. Yes, something like that can affect a person. Now, let's say that it affected a whole group of people because land ownership now became the economic process in Hawaii, for example. A whole group of people were affected by that. Our ways of knowing how to do our good work changed because now you have to leave your ohana and go do a job instead of doing work that your ohana has always done for a generation. That can affect a whole group of people. Then let's add to that the passage of time. That generation of people who lived through that began to have beliefs about how the world worked and behaved in certain ways in response to that happening to them. And those then become inherited by their descendants. So their children grow up knowing. This happens for some folks. Like, let's say that you weren't the generation that grew up in the Great Depression, but you were the children of the Great Depression's children. So you learned how to rinse and reuse a plastic bag when everybody else was celebrating single-use plastics like nobody's business. And you're over there. I heard stories about folks that because of conserving, that even, the Taro brand Poi plastic bag, they would rinse that out, wash it, and use it again several times until the paint of the bag was gone. And it didn't even say Taro brand anymore. That reusing was a practice of conservation because of being raised by parents that were raised in poverty. Does that make sense? So a intergenerational trauma is about adopting these values and beliefs that are changed so that your culture and beliefs as a group change in response to these things happening. And then we can talk about genetics and inherited trauma. That's another layer of it, but it's this idea, again, the same idea of like, we know that women who experience trauma while pregnant have babies who, when they're adults, have different frontal lobe sizes, that they are more likely to have inhibitory deficits in some way, or they are more likely to be anxious and reactive to things, physiological hyperarousal, for example. Those kinds of things we know. So are there things that can, does that stuff mean that it's fatal? Being Hawaiian is fatal, you're done, you have trauma, you're done? No, but it means there are things that carry across time that affect the way that we all operate and succeed. Does that make sense? It changes the way you see yourself and everybody else. Okay. So what does that look like in terms of, what does it look like in society? What does it look like in modern Hawaiian life? Maybe it's a shared frustration at not being heard or represented, or that the belief that your difference means there's something wrong with you. If you're not excited about that way of living, or that's not the way you approach the world, it means you have something wrong with you, not that the system is no good. That's one of those beliefs that we notice. We could talk a little bit about socioeconomics and the social determinants of health, but those are more like systemic bias factors. We'll talk about that in a minute. Microaggressions and macroaggressions. So just the adopted language and predominant assumptions. Has anybody ever told one of you that you're smart for a Hawaiian? Yeah, that's not a compliment, right? I'm not an outlier, right? Because what does that mean? It means everybody who's me is dumb. Is that what you mean? You're shocked? Oh, that's not a compliment. That's actually almost a macroaggression if you ask me, but it categorizes as microaggression. So these small ways that language is used to convey and perpetuate those beliefs. Repeated and escalating mistreatment of Aina, Kai, and Mauna are among the more recent spaces where I think the recognition of that cultural and historical trauma shows up. So why is this issue so very personal to people? Why does it matter? Well, yeah, we have to stand up for water because it turns out we all have to drink water to live. But why does it feel like something more deep and personal and inherent to us when those resources are not protected and treated with love? Why? Because they're core to our belief system. They're core to who we are. We're related to them, right? Those are, and our beliefs about spirit. And so those things mean that every time those incidents occur that mistreat it, we are affected and we experience a vicarious trauma from that. Does that make sense? I don't want to overuse the word trauma, but we are impacted in a negative way, in a stress way response to those mistreatments because we experience them as very personal, which is very different than a person who sees water and land as resources to be used. That person doesn't have a guttural emotional reaction to the decision about whether land is used for this or that, or how water is allotted. They don't have a guttural reaction. And so you've probably experienced those kind of community conversations where some of the group is speaking from their very soul. You get chicken skin when you hear them talking about how personal this is and how deeply they weep. And then the folks who kind of move more with a, well, logic tells us, and let's be fair, and let's be good partners and neighbors to one another, blah, blah, blah. And there lacks that deep connection. We see that as something that Kanaka, who identify culturally this way, feel as stress against themselves, feel as damaging, because again, they're portrayed as them being at fault. There's something wrong with you that you're so bothered. This is just a piece of land, get over it. That kind of a thing, yes? Okay. Appropriation of culture. This is one of the aspects that's actually a little bit about systemic bias as well, but so what does that mean? Hawaiian stuff is very cool and useful, right? Hawaiian shirts, right? Aloha shirts can be found in every mall throughout all of America. You can go in any mall in all of America and find an Aloha shirt. Is it a cool one? No, but it's there. Just kidding. Wait, because some of my Hawaiian business owners, they're getting to every mall in America, but right now, it's still like the ones that are a little more, appropriate, like, modern fabric makers adopting Hawaiian prints. But local stuff, Hawaiian stuff being cool and useful. You want people to throw your trash away, put mahalo on the trash can, right? I mean, our culture, we put a lei on things. We name programs Hawaiian words because it feels more welcoming, because we're the Ho'okipa culture. The challenge is Hawaiian stuff is cool, Hawaiians not so cool. You see that? There's a difference when there's a separation of the person from the culture. That is the concern. When the practices, behaviors, beliefs, our mele, our stories, right? Our beliefs about the world, when those are separated from who we are as people, say, oh, come to paradise. The aloha spirit is wonderful. That separates us, Kanaka, from aloha. And that separation stresses us out because it's like, so you're picking and choosing all that we've brought to the world, but do so in a way that disadvantages us. Got it. That's called systemic bias. Cool? Sorry, if I'm explaining stuff you already know, just sing along, just chime in and use the examples. I try to put it in terms so that later on when you have to explain it to somebody, you don't feel like you're like, it's just really bad. You feel like you can explain it. I hope that helps. And then grief and cultural trauma, we've talked about that a lot. But if you are Kanaka in Hawaii, then the odds are very good. You guys know what ACEs are? Yes, this is an ACEs fluid crowd, adverse childhood experiences. If you're Kanaka, even if we don't call it cultural historical trauma, but if you just are Hawaii, living in Hawaii, or even Hawaii in the diaspora, but mostly in Hawaii, I know the data are strong, you are more likely to have experienced an ACE than the other folks in Hawaii. Your higher percentage of those things occurring, in part because of the overlap between being Kanaka and poverty, and housing crisis and shortage, but people being displaced from their homes, having unstable housing, experiencing occupational challenges when they were growing up, that their parents lose a job, that we experience, Hawaiians die sooner, right? So we don't live as long. So that means we're more likely to experience grief and death, right? We got a lot of reasons that we're more likely to experience traumatic events, adverse childhood experiences, ACEs, when we're growing up. And that means that, and then if you add cultural historical trauma on top and go, oh, and by the way, by virtue of you belonging to this group and having a cultural identity, you know, all of this stuff is inherent in you too, and you're going to have to decolonize yourself. You're going to have to figure out what about you is being negative for no reason toward yourself. All of that put together, we got a lot of stress on us. Yes. Now, here's the really good news. Oh gosh, no, this is more bummers. I already said this stuff. Being Kanaka is advanced placement. That's what I want to say about this slide. I'm going to turn it off because it's a bummer. Being Kanaka is advanced placement. What do I mean by that? I mean, all of that stuff. I built a really good case for why none of us should be okay, right? If something bad happened to us, it's like, see? But here's the thing. We as a people have a whole lot going for us that is the opposite of that. What do I mean by that? Well, we're all aware of our own story, right? So the more information is power. We know our story. We know our genealogies. We know what we come from. And when we know those things, we know our practices. We have kuleana. So the minute you graduate high school, you are among the Hawaiians with a kuleana. You have a baby, you got kuleana. You graduate college, oh my gosh, or you get extra letters by your name, you have kuleana. So one of the other pressures about being Hawaiian, why I call it advanced placement, is because even if you are able to thrive through these things, let's say you are among the lucky. I call myself lucky, not better than anybody else, just lucky. I made it through. I was lucky. My parents, helped me be lucky. I have kuleana that my counterparts in my graduate school program do not have. They simply don't have it. So what do I mean by that? I had a professor who was wonderful, taught me lots of things that make me good at what I do. I can say that, but was from the continent. And when we would talk about these things, I invited him to my luau when I graduated. And this wonderful woman, Lili Kalakama Elehiva, got up and she did a speech for me and talked about how I was going to be a wonderful servant of our lahui. And she already knew that because she knew me. And, that's where I was going to be. And it was going to be so exciting to see what I would do. And he thought he was being gracious to me. He came over and he whispered in my ear, he said, or you could just be you. Why can't they just let you be whatever you're gonna be? And I was like, startled, right? Because I'm at my luau, I'm like, my laid out, it's the day when, anyway. And he thought he was saying something so loving to me that I could just be me. And I said, yeah, I guess I could choose to turn my back on my kuleana if I wanted to. I'm allowed to choose that, absolutely. But it's my kuleana, and so I realized in that moment that he was telling me the best of being supportive from his worldview, but it was not mine. And I understood that. And that's what I think most of the kids who figure out their way through Western education figure out: how to filter, how to learn from the ones that teach you the stuff they can teach you, and how to ignore the envelope it comes in because it's super biased against me. So I'm gonna leave it alone. I'm not gonna take it. Anyway, like I said, so this idea that you come into it, and even the ones who thrive have kuleana, who know we have to take care of our lahui. Who else is going to do it? Am I going to wait for somebody else to save us? And save us, right? As though we sit there helpless on the beach and wait for someone to prop us up and tell us we matter. No. Who's going to move us through to this next generation? Well, all of us, right? So there's this empowerment thing we got to do. So the cool part is I go, you see this mountain of stuff, I can build you a great case for why it's hard for Hawaiians. But here's the thing. We have so many gifts from our ike kupuna, from the way that we are wired as a people, that we have this whole wealth of strength to lean into if we just know how. And that's one of the great consequences of colonization, was we were disconnected from all the stuff that would make us okay through all of this. We didn't know how to do that anymore. We didn't know how to teach each other. That didn't come down through all the generations. And so a few ohana held it. A few brave non-Kanaka were recruited by Kanaka masters to hold ike when their ohana wasn't ready to hold it, and then gave it back. We have the ike. We're lucky. We have thousands of newspaper editions and articles that tell us the way our kupuna thought, that where the wisdom is. And we still have loea mauliola. We have healers among us that know these arts and practices, and then we can lean into them. And so I guess I'm going to say, if you want to ask me what I think you could do to heal through a Hawaiian lens from any trauma, the first thing I would tell you to do is engage in a cultural practice. Any cultural practice, I don't care. You want to make kapa, go. You want to make lehulu, you want to learn oli, you want to just olelo Hawaii, you want to dance hula, you want to lavaia, you want to make the foods that your ohana has carried through the generations, you want to learn how to make imu, you want to hukikalo and have muddy fingernails forever. Any of those would be the best first mauliola thing to do for yourself. Now, that might be a high bar for some of you, because maybe you're on the diaspora and it's harder to connect because the halau are farther apart. Yeah, or maybe you're busy. You got your 2 jobs and going to hula on Tuesdays is just not a thing. That's okay. The first place to start, if you can't start there, is to just engage with aina. What do I mean by that? Do you have to get in a lo'i every week? No, because if you don't live at a lo'i, that would be really hard to do. But you can engage a natural element every day. What do I mean? I mean, say good morning to the sun when it rises and hits your face. If you run it in the fluorescent lighting, 4 walls, air-conditioned life, lean into the window like a plant, go into the sunlight, right? When it rains, stop and let it hit you on your face. What does the wind feel like where you live outside your house? Is it the one where the wind is puffing, like a guy with bad breath? Or is it really, really gusty, like it's going to grab anything you left on the ground and take it to the neighbor? What does the wind do where you live? Have a conversation with it. Engage with a natural element every day. We talk a lot about aloha aina. I mean, I am aloha aina. You know how we say aloha kako to greet? Some of my favorite people just showed me this wonderful way to greet each other. Aloha aina kako. Because aloha and aina, same thing. Aloha aina kako. We love to be aloha aina, and we're going to put on our red shirt and we're going to testify and we're going to show up and we're going to sing iku mau mau. But the other thing to do is let aina heal us. That's what engaging with the natural elements every day does. When you let the wind blow on your face, when you say hi to the sun, when you chat with the clouds. I'm from Kaneohe. It rains every single day. If I was not a fan of rain, wrong environment for me, but it works perfect. I love rain. It makes me that in a mood, but not moody kind of self, cup of coffee kind. If I engage with aina, it heals me so that I can show up in aloha aina some other way. So if you have healing to do, if that's the stuff going on, we're going to engage with aina. Remember, I forgot who was the really smart person who said pilina building, right? We're going to build pilina because that's what the baseball coach has with the parents. We create and open safe spaces by building relationships. So what does that mean? It means patience, Mary, patience, right? They're not going to tell you their deepest soul stuff day one, but you know what? Sometimes they are. And maybe it's because you made them laugh. Maybe it's because you feel like an auntie or an uncle or a friend they already know, but you can hold space and they can know you're doing it by acknowledging these things, by taking care of the stuff that makes them feel safe first without ever having to talk about it. Be like, hey, are you hungry? Now, what does that have to do with cultural practice? Anybody? Hey, you want crackers? You hungry? I got, somebody gave me these cutie oranges. You want one? I got 97. You want one? What is that? There's nothing more Hawaii than taking care of somebody's fundamental needs and feeding them like you were just about to eat. even if you just ate lunch and you're super full. So not here, I'm going to feed you, you eat, and I'm going to watch you. But we're going to eat together. So you're not hungry, I don't care, just nibble. But the sharing of it matters. Now, COVID, I got you. We got to work it out. You got to convey your rainbows other ways, but just don't lick the orange. You know what I mean? We'll be all right. So we're going to embed all of these things in the way that we care for them, in the way that we address it. So that's what I'm saying. Yes, I can give you mountains of data about trauma, but I can also tell you we have a vast ocean of gifts that we can give them and ways to invite them to heal that are not just, hey, there's something wrong with you, you're sick, get healthy. So that's Western. Yeah, Western is dichotomous. You have disease, sick, and you have healthy. And you're in one category or the other. And if you're sick, you go get medicine and you go to the doctor, somebody professional fixes it and you go home and you're better. Mauliola, Hawaiian mindset about health and well-being is about balance. It's about balance between elements. It's about maintaining the balance between yourself and Aina and your spirits. It's about knowing that your picos are lined up. We can talk about picos another day because I can go a whole thing on picos, but maybe we will. Anyway, but there's this idea that we're maintaining balance between the parts of who we are and between us and nature and the spirit, right? Aina, Kanaka, and Akua. And Akua doesn't just mean capital A like Jehovah, can mean anything that you mean about what spirit means. But those things in balance equals well and healthy. So if we're going to talk about illness, are we going to say, oh, you're sick, go to the Lomi Lomi, they're going to press on your neck and you're going to be healthy? Most traditional healers I know tell you that it's a pilina, that you have to do it over time to maintain your well-being. More than just, I'm going to come, I'm going to press the special spot on your neck and you're not going to have sinus problems anymore. I mean, some of them do roll like that. Let me just say that. Some of them know that special spot and bless them. But, there's this thing about balance in our health and practice. Okay, so how do you put all of this stuff that is the wealth of our Ike Kupuna, right? So what is the stuff that we get? So someone really smart once told me that our kupuna, if you have a Hawaiian perspective, that our kupuna access us through piko-i up here at the top of our head. You know that spot that's smooshy when you're a baby and didn't close yet? It's because they're still taking all the ike direct from the kupuna, until it closes. And then we get a little more hard head, literally. And it's harder for them to get in there and we have to remember to ask. But this, and that our kupuna reside constantly 6 inches above our heads at any one time. And that sounds like, oh, okay, maybe that's a nice thought. No. Imagine that. One of the greatest things that plagues our society today is loneliness, is the feeling that you are disconnected from others. That is the eha in our soul that just won't heal sometimes. So what does it mean that I tell you that your kupuna are right there all the time, anytime you need them? It means you're never, ever have to be alone if you don't want to be. And if the living kind of suck, you burned all those relationships or their nails or they're busy on TikTok or whatever is happening. If the living aren't handling it, your kupuna are right there. And then you go, I don't know my kupuna. I don't know my genealogy. And I didn't take Lily Kala's class. What you talking about? I'm like, it's okay if you don't know the name of yours. You lean into ours. How do you find them? You listen to our music. You read our stories. You lean into that. That is their wisdom packaged up for us simple-minded, modern youngsters, right? I love calling us youngsters because, compared to a kupuna, I'm the youngest thing in town, right? Because they're a spirit realm already and I'm still corporeal. I'm still mortal. So I'm young. Yay. Okay. So we lean into cultural practice. So when I say you need to activate your piko-i, your kupuna, you want to lean into that, we're going to listen to our mele. Maybe you're going to go research your genealogy. It's never been easier than it is now to find more about your ohana. It's a good time to hit Mr. Google for that. You know what I mean? If that's where you got to go. Now, if there's a knee of a kupuna you can sit at and learn, better yet, go to the family reunion. But if they're busy today and you just want to reach, go ahead, Google, right? So we're going to lean into our ike. We're going to lean into our mele. We're going to lean into our mo'olelo, our stories. And that's going to be how we lean into them, right? So we're going to remember what we know. Now, maybe what you're going to do is you're going to prepare the foods you know that they made. I don't care if it's pork and beans with red hot dog. If that's what your parents made you and that soothes your soul, there you go, piko-i. By the way, that's delicious. Don't let anybody tell you any different. Okay, so right? So we're going to lean into Pico E. Now we're also going to lean into Pico Ah. Can you guys guess which Pico is Pico Ah? It's the one that makes us make that noise. That's our Pico Ma'i. That Pico is about that which we create. So yes, for some of us, that means make children. But for other of us, it means create new ideas. It means create healing. It means create life. It means art. It means all those things. Those are Pico Ah things. So sometimes for us, we lean into Pico E for wisdom, right? That's the Ike. We're the person who wants to learn all the things. We want to hear all the people talk. We go to a party. What do we want to do? Learn stuff, right? Pico A person is telling jokes. They're making up new stuff. They're planning a new thing. And then there's Pico O in the middle. That's the person who's just talking story, everybody over here, or they're the one making sure we're already cleaning up when the party just started. You know that person? Person's Pico O. Anyway, that's the middle Pico. That's the one that connects you to your Makua. That's like present tense. And Pico A is the future. That's looking to the future and all that stuff. So that Pico we lean into when we need to find balance, because we just need to create and produce. It's part of who we are. For each person, the 3 Pico are balanced a little different, right? Some of you, if I told you what we're going to do all day is we're going to learn stuff. You're just going to sit there and take it all in. Like 6% of you are stoked, like deeply in your soul stoked. And the Pico A leaning people are dying. They're like, you mean I have to not talk for 6 whole hours? Oh my God, what am I going to do? Right? Or, oh, can we not use the worksheet and fill out the form? Pico O people love a form, the worksheet, fill it out. Pico A people want a blank paper and some Post-its and pens. Get out of my way. We'll figure it out ourselves. And can we make a diorama instead of filling out a report like that? Pico A, yeah? So that which we create. And so balance, that's one more way that we think about balance from a Hawaiian perspective, is which Pico do you lean into? Now, we need all of them to line up and be firing okay. But one thing that we can do for Keiki when we're thinking about how their day runs is look at what % of time are they spending in any one of those Pico. Does that make sense? As a way to think about it, it's a little different. How much are they taking in? A little bit, this is Paulo Freire banking method a little bit, but it's also take it in like observe and kilo. Doesn't have to be just the bad kind. Pico O, present tense, that's the doing, the busy. That's socializing and connecting, that's teaching, that's that stuff. But it's also, yeah, doing, connecting with people. That's group work, that's fill out the worksheet with 72 times tables on it, just real fast, produce. Then Pico A is creating. How much are they visioning a new idea, making up something for themselves, right? Like if Pico O is, so Pico E is kind of reading comprehension. That's Pico E. Pico O is like speed test, fill out the answers, A, B, C, or D, answer this structured question. And then Pico A is open-ended, right? Tell me what you think. Open-ended. See, even in nerd class stuff, you can make all this stuff make sense, but it's just another way to look at a Keiki's life. To go, here's what's not working in the classroom. We're not inviting him to lead. He's a Pico O person. He likes to lead. We're having him do, but different kind of do than his strength is. We got to invite that from him. By the way, sometimes kids are cheating because they're used to talking and collectively arriving at answers. It's how you solve problems in baseball, right? And so the idea that you're talking to your friends and discussing the question and coming up with the answers, if you can create a space where a Hawaiian boy is brave to shout out an answer that might be wrong and recovers when he wasn't the rightest, you've made a safe space. Because that vapor lock, freeze and shut down is much more common in our boys. Somebody tell me they know what I'm talking about. Is that a thing you've seen? So if you can hold a space where they're brave to pipe up, so they still charge them, you know that boy, that's Cal. He charges the answer, gonna blurt them loud. But if it's wrong, crash, burn, 2 hours, not helpful. Sour in the corner. Impulsive, I like die. Why? Because is he actually having active suicidal ideation? Well, we're gonna check, but he's in the middle of reacting to feeling shame. And he made a mistake and he failed. Failure is a big deal for Hawaiian boys. Turns out it's a big deal for Hawaiian men too. You guys want to know what's the parallel for Hawaiian girls? Just in my humble opinion. asking for help. Very, very hard for us. Harder than everybody, asking for help. Okay, does anybody feel seen? Pane, Wahine, Mahu folks, do what you do. Pick and choose, take the best of each. Okay, do what you gotta do. If you feel seen on both sides, might cut you. Yeah, mahalo crystal. Yeah, and it's a funny thing because you can say it and you can know that you're safe, but how you convey that to the kids and how you model that their answer is right from a certain lens instead of nope is so critical to a space where they feel safe. And it's funny because that's not a treatment approach. I mean, it can be, by the way, but that's just how you run your room. That's just, part of the day when you have a group of kids. Maybe it's even your own children, right? If you play zone defense because you got that many keiki running, then this might be for you too. Okay, it's 4:17 on iPhone time. Sorry, that's my way of checking. And I wanted to leave space for you folks to get in here with me. Let's talk story. I could go on and on. We can talk about Pale and Ho'oku'u release. I will keep on babbling if you want me to, but I would much rather we get in here either with a question, a situation, or what would I do for Kalehua? How would I support Keao? Or some other kid you guys want to talk about, or not even your kids. Because the part I didn't talk about, because I knew I was going to get excited and go off, is there's this thing that I've called walking kaumaha. And it's the idea that among these high functioning professional folks like all of you, we carry the same weight. But because we're high functioning, because we holomua, because we just keep doing, no one can see it in the same ways that everybody else does. Because are you at home in your sweatpants, missing work, missing assignments, not getting it done? No. If you feel like crying and someone calls you because there's some family in crisis in your community, who wins? Not you. You're not staying home to take care of yourself today. Maybe you are. If you are, thank you. Because I need you to fight the good fight a long time. But we generally give of ourselves more than we have. And that kaumaha is why I call it walking kaumaha, because we just keep rolling. So just like I'm talking about creating safe spaces for keiki and doing the Maliola stuff for keiki and leaning into aina, kai, the natural elements, knowing what my picos are up to and who I am, just like for them, is for you. The process is parallel. Because we can't be the endless resource of finding all the good words and all the good moments where we can open our heart and have good stuff come and wrap around them intuitively, right? Or very intentionally. We can't do that if we're not balanced. And the kaumaha that we walk around with is not just because you're not good at this, or because you're weak-minded, or because you have mental health issues. The kaumaha is real, and all of you swim in it every day, right? You care for people that have kaumaha. You care for people with trauma. That stuff can't help but stick to you because you're a breathing, loving person. So you actively have to move through it so that you can care about them without carrying it. Because that kaumaha is heavy. Okay, so with that in mind, that was my helpful, handy dander, hey you, I'm talking to you reminder. Somebody throw something out there. What should we talk about? Does anybody have a question? Or a thought? Or an example? Or does Anakipunani want to school us all now so I can stop blabbling?
I have a
Robin?
question for you.
Okay.
So because I noticed certain, especially my Hawaiian boys, that even though the correction can be on small things, some of them like break down and cry like I gave them dirty leakings. So like, what would be, how can I help them to improve, but not put them in that state of mind?
Yeah. Okay. So I have spent a long time in my life trying to figure that out. And I have some ideas, but they're not finite. So other people, please chime in. The one that I think I would lean into is this idea of giving them, I call it leadership training, giving them kuleana to the class, to the school, to you, to the other things that gives them a place to lead and be strong so that they can emphasize the one that they're strong in. So then the hama-hamas are not as big a deal. That's kind of like the bigger strategy is that you make sure you know, these are the kids you're going to volunteer to be the pool blower or the line leader or the special kuleana haver. You're going to put them in charge of the class when you got to go lua, even though you know they're the one who usually cuts it up. But you give them kuleana because they're dependable. So you show them their gifts and strengths that they can lean into. And that way the hemahemas feel smaller. What I also lean in, and Jennifer, if I'm missing, or if you guys need to, you know, if I need to shift, let me know. The other part is I had the privilege of sitting to interview a number of Loea cultural practitioners in various healing arts and their students. And I got to like listen, like interview, ask them questions about how that happened. And one of the things that they all talked about was two things. One was the nuku, the scolding, can be very harsh between a Loea and their haumana. But that's not to say that Hawaiians are harsh and scold people when they teach. No, no, no. It's because there's a commitment between the two people. The love is so big that the scolding is appropriate because it's in this long-term relationship. The person is scolding because they're just as responsible as the haumana to learn. And so there's a love there that the nuku comes with. The other theme that jumped out for me, that was a really big one, was this idea that the students felt pushed, flicked, tossed out of the nest sooner than they felt they were ready. And that feeling of, I must learn to swim, was in part an artifact of how young our people die, that their kumu passed before they finished learning or before they felt like they got everything, but also because there were times when the kumu just didn't have, the Loea didn't have enough to give to the whole ahui who needed it. And so you have to kind of deputize your learners to go and do it and make it their own as soon as possible, because they could see the kupuna dying. They could see all the Loea dying. And so what I take from that is two things. One is, remember that any energy you spend building the pilina with the child more generally makes the safe space better. And there's more trust, so that if there is a nuku, they can rebound within the trust that you've built with them. Because if they know you think they're great, that's what doing that leadership stuff does, by the way, is they see that you see them as great. It's easier for them to take a nuku from you. It's easier if it's like you and I are in fixing whatever I just scolded you about, instead of I'm going to isolate you and put you over there as the one who did wrong, even though that's not the tone you use, right? You're caring for them. You're trying to be gentle. You know this kid. You want them to do well. I don't know. Those are just like a couple. I don't know if any of that's helpful, but if any of that gives you something to rock on, we got this. Okay. Oh, the sandwich. Compliment, correction, compliment. As long as they know they're getting a sandwich and you don't think they didn't feel that. Yeah, those are good. Go ahead, Jennifer. Were you going to say something? Did you?
I said one other thing that, or at least for my Hawaiian family, that we had a problem is to ask questions. Because if you ask a question, you're not paying attention. You know? And so a lot of times, as growing up, I didn't understand what I needed to do because I didn't know how to ask for help or ask a question for clarifying. That goes along with asking for help as a wahine too. But I was just thinking about the asking the question. Wasn't until like going to college, and then I was with my continent peoples inside of the class. They was asking all these intelligent questions. I'm sitting there like, oh yeah, that's a good question. Oh yeah,
you're good at asking. Yeah, and then you like admire their question asking. Yeah.
I'm still working on how to ask questions, but yeah.
Yeah, that is an area about asking questions, because in Hawaiian kind, it's not that you're not allowed to ask questions. It's that you got to wait, because there's time and place. And usually the question comes in your head. If you just wait a little while, the answer is going to come. And so we're trained to be patient with the ike giver. Yeah. That's our training, is to be patient, to observe, to listen, to take it in first before you start your, I wonder, blah, 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 because you can ask a better question. The challenge is that in a Western classroom context, who is reinforced? The first question, the quickest mind to come up with a question, perhaps. And so it's not viewed by all teachers as disruptive to ask a question. Now, depends what kind of question. I think you can irk a Western teacher by asking a question too. I really do. a sassy one. Yes, go ahead, Joanne. Come my.
Yeah,
Just
I'm
reading.
moaning here.
Yeah, please moan.
My background is, you can tell I'm not 25. So it's been a few years that I've been in classrooms. And I haven't had that many Hawaiian children, even though my children and grandchildren are Hawaiian. But I'm thinking of Mexicans and Japanese in California. I'm thinking of how many kids, the whole gamut of kids, you know, and I'm talking early childhood all the way through graduate students. So I'm, you know, but
The whole rainbow and the whole bridge. I got you.
yeah,
Yes.
right. And what I found is, according to the Western system, which I resisted, I resist very strongly, is that questions are not welcome for the most part. There are individual teachers who do, and they're the teachers who know how to teach. But the whole system is like, sit down, shut up, don't ask questions, memorize, regurgitate it back, and then you get your gold star and your whatever. You know, and to
Mahalo.
me,
That's that banking method. That's
it's totally anti-growth as an individual person. So so the whole system needs to be modified.
Revised. Yeah, we need a little more growth mindset.
Way.
Yeah, mahalo. And thank you for that. Oli, I see. Hey, ni naukau. Do you still have it? Halamai. Oli, Alicia?
Alahamai. So my is regarding like I hear you about Pilina, and there's a lot of us makua, you know, as far as our role in the ohana. They are locked up, yeah. A lot of our makua, and I have actually been one that has did a lot of time. And as far as reconnecting them, you know, rebuilding a kukulu and creating that, you know, the pilina within the ohana, because that's the disconnection, yeah. Once they took away the land, then they took away our sustenance. They took away the places that we live, the places that we have our keiki, and then we, you know, the ikekipuna and the teaching of all and everything, and how to live and how to fish and gather.
All of it.
And all of that. So now our makua is locked up. And now the pepe gotta go with grandma or foster care. But then being that, you know, what I want to know is how would you go about if bringing them back together? You know, we have ho'oponopono, right? We have ho'oponopono.
Yes.
But there is protocol and there is a certain way. And then you have parole officers and probation officers and, you know, the state.
There's a whole system around it that makes that harder.
Yes.
Yeah.
And, you know, and CPS and, you know, all this extra that causes disconnection instead of, you know, being able to rebuild and, you know, I don't know, what would you say would be helpful for our?
Well, I would first acknowledge that Anake Punani Burgess is on, and she is among the most loving and dedicated.
And she had her hand, and she did have her hand up. Like
I know, I saw her.
bit.
Kalamai, on a whole thing. But if she's busy, it's okay. But I just want to acknowledge that the healing circles that she does and the way that she has for decades now cared for ohana and helped them to heal and mend and bridge, even in a complicated system. She's here. So me saying anything feels kind of silly by comparison. But if she's busy, I would say, rather than saying, oh, there you are, huli, the system kind of things, because yes, we have talked a lot about how incarceration mechanisms don't encourage families to be together. They don't. That there are other ways. I think beyond that, though, is you're asking a much more pragmatic question about, okay, in the system we live in now, in the real life we have now, what might be some things to do to help bridge that for the ohana that have that estrangement that's very system driven. The separation is not their choosing. They're just separated. Yeah, that's kind of maybe, I don't know. Anake Punani, do you feel like you want to share a little bit here? If you don't, I'll keep blabbing. We're a little over time, but I feel like people don't mind. You're on mute if you're talking.
Auntie, we still cannot hear you.
Yeah, you still yet on mute. You gotta get that
How's
there.
that?
Aye. Oh yeah.
There we
Uh-huh.
go.
Aukahi, thank you so much. I just want to say something that is so important to all of us. Wa mau ke ea o ka aina I ka pono. When we think about that the life of this land is preserved in hope. That is also the definition, and it's not the often used definition of pono. And the question that I often ask, especially young people, is what is your gift? And many of you have heard the story of the boy with the gift that he could call the fish. Once he understood that he was valuable on his own terms, his capacity to heal himself became part of the equation. So we can never heal anybody if they bring nothing to the table. So trying to help a child, a person, a family find what their gift is, that's what they bring to the table. It's where their source of hope lies. And so you awakened the spirit, Aukahi, in the way that you presented not just information, but experience. So thank you for letting me offer that. Mahalo.
Ah, aye. Wa mau no ke ea o ka aina ka pono. I think that's where we end. I don't know about you, but I feel like what is your gift is a great thing for us to carry away with us on our clouds today. So I'm just going to mahalo all of you and mahalo Gail and Bella and the compassionate Ko'olau Poko folks for inviting me and their very, very gracious patience with me as it took me like 100 years to get here. I'm so grateful for this time, and I'm going to toss it back over to them because I'm sure they have to tell us about evaluations and next times and like that. Yeah? Okay.
Mahalo, Aukahi, and mahalo everyone for joining us, taking the time. Aukahi, you're totally worth the wait. It was so wonderful to hear all of your mana'o. So much for us to take in right now. I think that's why everybody's on, even though it's a little past 4:30. We just wanted to extend our gratitude to you for taking the time. We know you're really busy and just so grateful for you being here today. Bella, do you want to say anything?
No, just mahalo kako again. And we will have, this was recorded. And so we do have it, we will have it up on our website very shortly and be letting all of you know so that we can, I mean, there's so much stuff. I was taking notes. I know I didn't catch everything. But yeah, it'll be there for all of us again to tap into. So mahalo nui again, Aukahi, and mahalo kako, everyone. We will see you again soon, hopefully. Aloha.
Mahalo, friends. Ahui
Ahuyo.
Mahalo nui.
Mahalo.
Aloha.